Now, if you've been following for a while, you know that we love digging into the fossil record together. It's amazing to get a glimpse into our planet's history, and we've covered some remarkable fossils in the past. But today, we're taking a step back from individual fossils to appreciate the fossil record as a whole, the entire collection of fossils we've discovered throughout history. In a recent paper, researchers made an astounding claim about the fossil record. They said it was the best archive of life that humanity has ever assembled. So I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. But are they right? Is the fossil record really the best we've got? Well, stick with me because we're about to find out. All right, so let's start at the beginning. What even is the fossil record? Well, there are actually a few different ways to answer that question. But in general, the fossil record is the set of preserved remains and traces of ancient life that can be found in sedimentary rocks. These remains might be actual body parts that have mineralized over time, like bones and shells. Or they might be imprints or textures left behind by living things, like footprints or bruise. And these fossils don't just preserve in stone. They're also locked away in amber, trapped in permafrost, and even preserved in the tissue of living corals. It's hard to overstate the importance of the fossil record. Sure, it's taught us that giraffes used to have shorter necks and that some dinosaurs had feathers. But it's also given us unprecedented insight into the history of life on Earth. It's revealed that life on Earth has been around for 5 billion years. It's shown us that complex animals first appeared during the so-called Cambrian explosion, and it's demonstrated that mass extinctions, including the one that killed off most of the dinosaurs and paved the way for mammals to diversify, have happened again and again throughout history. So we know the fossil record is important, but have we found all the fossils there are to find? Well, no, not by a long shot. Paleontologists estimate that we've only found about 1% of the fossils that are out there. So it's fair to say that we've barely scratched the surface. And that means that we might be missing a lot of important information. So could it be possible that the fossil record isn't the best archive of life that humans have ever assembled? Well, that's exactly what the authors of this new paper set out to discover. Now, before I read you their conclusions, I need to tell you about a technique called phylogenomics. This is the study of how genes change across different species and over time. And it's proving to be a really powerful tool for reconstructing the history of life. See, unlike traditional taxonomy, which is based on physical similarities, phylogenomics looks at the relationships between organisms by comparing their DNA. And this approach has already helped scientists identify and classify millions of genetic markers that can be used to reconstruct the evolutionary history of life on Earth. This new paper presents a novel use for phylogenomics instead of studying relationships between modern organisms. These researchers used phylogenomics to compare the genomes of thousands of living species against the fossil record to evaluate the quality and completeness of our paleontological data. So what did they find? Well, buckle up, because here's where it gets really weird. The authors concluded that the fossil record is in fact the best archive of life that humans have ever assembled. That might sound a bit surprising, considering that we haven't even found 1% of all the fossils out there. But the authors argue that the fossil record isn't just about the fossils we've found. It's also about the patterns that those fossils reveal. For example, thanks to advances in imaging technology, paleontologists can now scan fossils without even opening them up. And with the help of computer tomography, CT scans, they can analyze the internal structures of fossils that would otherwise be inaccessible. And by comparing the features of fossils with those of living organisms, scientists can reconstruct the history of life on Earth in extraordinary detail. In fact, according to the authors, the fossil record is so good that it's often more reliable than our genetic data. As the authors put it, Genomic data can provide insights into evolutionary processes, but they are generally more prone to uncertainty than the fossil record. In other words, while our genetic data is helpful, it shouldn't replace the fossil record. Wait until you see what happens next. You won't be able to stop smiling. Alright, but this is where it gets really interesting. The authors go on to say that the fossil record isn't just more reliable than our genetic data, it's also more complete. What do I mean by that? Well, it turns out that our genetic data doesn't stretch back very far at all. Most genetic studies focus on species that have lived within the last few thousand years, a time period known as the Holocene epoch. This is roughly 12,000 years ago up until now. But according to the authors, the fossil record stretches back tens of millions of years. In fact, the fossil record goes back so far that it helps us understand the evolution of life on Earth before there even was such a thing as DNA. That means that the fossil record is a more comprehensive archive of life than any other data set we have available. In other words, the authors are arguing that the fossil record is better than our genetic data, our microscopic data, and our space data all rolled into one. It's an incredible argument, and it's supported by some pretty staggering stats. For instance, the authors estimate that there are roughly 10 trillion fossils on Earth, but only about 1 million living species. That means that for every 10,000 living species on Earth, there's 10,000 fossils. So there's a lot more fossils than living organisms. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. According to the authors, the fossil record encompasses hundreds of billions of specimens, each of which represents a unique snapshot of life on Earth through time. That's why the authors say the fossil record is the best archive of life that humans have ever assembled. We simply can't match its scope and scale with any other data set. But this is where it gets even more exciting. The authors aren't content to just show that the fossil record is great. They also show how it can be used to address some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Take climate change, for instance. By studying the fossil record, we can learn how life on Earth has responded to past climate shifts. And that knowledge can help us predict how current organisms will respond to future changes. For instance, by studying the fossil record of coral reefs, we can learn how they've responded to rising sea temperatures in the past, and that knowledge can help us predict how they'll respond to future changes. Or consider the search for extraterrestrial life. By studying the fossil record of early life on Earth, we can gain insight into the signs of life to look for elsewhere in the universe. After all, if we want to find life elsewhere in the universe, we need to know what life looks like before it leaves a fossil record. And that's just the beginning. The authors argue that the fossil record can be used to answer all kinds of questions, from understanding the origins of human behavior to predicting the effects of future pandemics. In other words, the fossil record is a powerful tool that can help us understand the past, navigate the present, and plan for the future. But here's where it gets really cool. The authors are just getting started. They envision a future in which the fossil record is used even more widely to address some of humanity's most pressing challenges. In particular, they call for a new era of open access paleontology, an era in which fossil data is freely available to all researchers. According to the authors, open access paleontology will allow researchers from all over the world to work together to answer some of humanity's most pressing questions. It will allow us to better understand the history of life on Earth, and it will help us prepare for whatever challenges the future may hold. In short, it will allow us to better understand the world around us. And that's why this paper is so exciting. The authors aren't just content to show that the fossil record is great. They're showing how it can be used to make our world a better place. So, what do you think? Do you agree with the authors that the fossil record is the best archive of life that humans have ever assembled? Let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out this other video. You might like it. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning all about the incredible power of the fossil record. And if you did, I have a favor to ask. Would you take 2 seconds to give this video a like? It really helps me out. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Now, if you like this video, you'll love this one. I think you'll especially like this part. This is gonna blow your mind.